I really can't even believe that we are here. It was July. I'm sure it was July. And now it is November, and then it will be January. All right, that is sense. And then it will be January, and then we'll be in 2020, and then it'll be 2025, and time flies by. And I tell you what, this is really, speaking of time flying by, this is the time to really get in your place in God. The season of forbearance and delay is over. You don't have an infinite amount of times where you can roll your loans over before you have to start paying for them, don't we all know? That comes to an end at some point. And many people right now have come to the end of their forbearance, the end of their deferment on obedience, and they're about to meet the governmental side of God. Just like when they come down on your money, whenever you go into default, what do? They just take it from your account until the debt has been rectified to the point where they feel safe enough to release the rest of your money to you. Many people right now are in that teeter-totter phase with God, where they have had their obedience in forbearance, roll over. You stop looking at the mail and you don't realize that you have used up all of your forbearance, all of your deferment, and you are now in default. And we have a lot of default obediences out there right now where God is about to start collecting on your life and collecting on your obedience without your permission. See, as long as you deal with the loan companies, you can make an arrangement. They'll base it on what? Your income. You can only do $5 a month. We'll take your $5 a month. Okay? As long as there's something on the books saying you are paying this down. $5 a month isn't paying anything down. Nothing. But it's on the books, okay? You're not really whittling away $90,000 in debt with $5 a month. However, it is keeping the government at bay. We're just going to take this. But there are those who refuse, and so what happens is when the government comes in, it's no longer a negotiation. It is imminent. It is upon you. And, we say that because this is the season where we are in. We really don't consider that a lot of this warfare that God is going through, the church is going through, is because people won't get in their place. They won't get in their place. They won't get in their place the way God told them to do it. Today's audio archive, I'm hot on this subject right now because the audio archive, we told you we were going to dig up some leadership tapes. And we found some. And so today's audio archive is the attitude of leadership. And Dr. Price taught us, had to be 2003, I guess. I don't know. I have to go back and look, but 2003, maybe 2002. You can hear her writing on the whiteboard. That's it. Ah, yes. I remember whenever laptops and things like that and projection were happening, and Dr. Price had one of her first PowerPoints on the screen. We were like, yeah, we have arrived in the church. And people knew then Dr. Price is really cutting edge because we have all this technology. But in this teaching, she was in her classroom writing on the board, so you could hear the marker on the whiteboard. And she talked about the attitude of leadership and how we are taught techniques, but not really trained on attitude. And every last one of our leaders are going to be required to purchase this and own it and listen to it, learn it, chew it down. It is a cassette that's converted, so it sounds like a converted cassette tape, but I promise you that wisdom was not deteriorated at all, okay? At all. How is this tied to what I just said? Because Dr. Price goes in on the attitude of the leader and even knowing when you are the catalyst of warfare. See, all of our leaders are going to listen to this because these are the trainings that we were groomed with. Same teachings and trainings. Things that people think we do instinctually. We do because we are anointed. We do because we're smart. We did it because we were taught it and then required to deliver. Deliver. And it's befitting that this new round of people goes through the same class. Okay? She's talked about technique without the God foundation is what's taking us out in the body of Christ. Again, this is back in 2003. I love speaking to the validity and the continuity and the integrity of Dr. Price's mantle. It is not enough to be hype in a season. It's not enough to just gather in a window of time. What is going to happen past that? What fruit are you producing? What kind of fruit does your wisdom produce? We see now, and we talk about it on several broadcasts, the hot mess that we have in the church in many pulpits is the fruit of somebody else's belief system that was implanted and imparted in that person, and then they were unleashed on the body of Christ, or at the very least their congregation, to then spew that all over the place. And she talks about that. She says, if you don't want to come to help, then you came to hurt. And went into a discussion on why when you enter into a leadership position in an organization, you should sit for a while, hear the heart of the leader, but that leader has to hear your heart as well, to know if what's on the inside of you is going to help us or if it's going to hurt us. Most people don't walk in the door saying, I'm going to be a cudgel against this organization. They really don't. Some people do come in with the intention to destroy. Many people do not. And they are just as surprised as everybody else that they're a wrecking ball and not a pillar and a foundation and a support beam that they intended to be. She said, first, and she was using a Davidic model, how David was building his mighty men, how he built what he had. And she said, first, you unify the group. Every good leader unifies. One of the first things Dr. Price looks for in anybody who is even qualifying for a leadership position, do you unify or do you divide? Before we get to intelligence, before we get to anointing, we always have to have anointing. Before we get to charisma, do you draw the people? Drawing people and unifying people are not the same thing. Many people gather, but then they split. They're divisive, even in their gathering. So it's not just about gathering people to your message, but are you unifying people when they are with you? And then you have to make that declaration of allegiance, divine assignment. I go back in some of my old files and records, especially in that era, the 2002 to 2007 age, and I have found multiple letters of declaration. Usually we had to write them when we were cutting up, and we forgot why we came, and we had to revisit our vows to God and to this organization if we were going to continue. And I have found multiple letters, maybe about 3 or 4, of my dedication to this assignment. You can't make it about the person. You have to make it about the assignment where God has you. He switches people out all the time. How many companies have we worked in? Managers come and go, CEOs come and go, but the company is still there. So she talked about that. She said, our words about each other. She began to talk about warfare. And warfare starts in the mouth, especially if you are a prophet or you are an apostle. Your mouth on somebody else's life is either going to cause a hedge of protection, or you are going to be the primary assaultant on their life. You are going to be the one that launches it. She says, our words about each other determine the degree of warfare a leader experiences. You start shooting off the mouth, running off the mouth, fussing and fuming, and and I tell you what, we've learned this the hard way with each other and our own lives, recognizing that the warfare, the warfare that our colleagues were going through was because of us. We thought, because we were carnal, for sure, we thought that, hey, them going through was validation. That's what I'm talking about. See, that's what I'm talking about. Not realizing that you running your mouth was actually holding the door open. Hey, Satan, over here, here's my leader. Come and take him out. We didn't know. I'm telling you, Dr. Price is a witness. People, I say this all the time. People think we survived Dr. Price. No, I'm telling you, she survived us. I promise you. The level of friendly fire that we had going on, it's a miracle anybody's walking around today because of the weapons and the warfare that we launched on each other, trying to prove we were right, trying to prove they were wrong. Young, cocky, arrogant, self-serving, the list goes on. She said, a leader can't use you until they hear your heart. And if you have this particular leader, she is going to put you in the press and the squeeze to see what comes out of you under pressure, under duress. Let's get you good and mad. See what happens when you're good and mad. Look, see, you can't see it. This is the amen hand. Went up. Yeah. Let's get you good and mad and see, because in good times, everybody can show up. When we're happy and we know it, we clap our hands. Yeah. When we do all of that, yes. But it's when the going gets tough, when you can't have your way, when your money's funny, when you don't feel well in your body, all of those things really determine what type of leader you are going to be. She had given an assignment in the class, and some people did it, some people didn't. And she said, see, this right here is an example of how you will be as a leader. If I can't trust you with a homework assignment, how am I going to trust you with my organization? Because we think we're waiting. Leadership is the big moments. Ta-da! I am saving up all of my everything until it really counts. You have people like that who are really counts people. They only look their best when it really counts. They're only on time when it really counts. You only have your best disposition on when it really counts. And so you always try and calculate when it really counts. Look, I'm telling you lessons I learned, okay? And the Lord said, no, there is no out of season for you. It always counts. And she talks about in this particular teaching that a genuine leader, a person of excellence, they don't determine their excellence by when it counts the most to them, or when they think it counts the most to someone else. She said leaders must distinguish who was sent to them versus who comes of their own accord. Just because people show up does not mean they're sent. That helps you determine who's actually on your leadership team versus who is in your congregation, if we're talking about churches, or who is in your support team, if it is a business. Who should be a regular employee versus who should be in your executive leadership. You have to determine who was sent to you, not just who came. I was inspired, excellent, but were you sent? We're seeing that now in a lot of ministries, and Dr. Price has talked about this. Now we have to listen. Did God call you? Or did you just go into business and it happens to be a church? And this is your first career. And a lot of people have like 3 or 4 careers now before they die. I tried the church thing for a while. Then I moved in. More and more you hear that. Well, I did church thing for a while. That wasn't working. I shut it down after so many times. Then we moved on to something else, It's just a business for a lot of people. She said, what are they going to do? What motivates them? You have to listen to people's motivations. Are they motivated because this is their calling? Or are they motivated because they don't have a choice? When I hear people say that they're doing something because they don't have a choice, that lets me know a lot. Versus, listening to someone who says, we've had leaders over the years. Well, you're always saying how long I'm going to be here, but where else am I going to go? Where else am I going to go? I mean, you're all I have, which means as soon as you have something else, you're out. Well, God's not giving me a choice. He's giving me this ultimatum, which means if you could do anything else, you wouldn't be doing this. And the first opportunity or the second or third opportunity that shows up and is you're out, you're going to be out. Well, God. Okay, she says you have to recognize that when, when you don't do your part, something is missing. You have to recognize that. When you don't deliver and you're on a team, what you don't do is missing, and it begins to hinder the overall objective that we are going for, which is why we like to throw all of our leaders in training into group activities. Group, because leadership is teamwork. If your team is 3 strong, 2 strong, 500 strong, it's all about teamwork. Oh, I can't work with them. They do this, they do that. Or the person who just can't wait to get in the midst of everybody. Yes, let's work together as a team. Let's pull it together. Let's execute the vision. Let's do it. Okay. And not just to show off, to be center stage, but because they really do believe in the vision. And she talked about that inner government and integrity. I was talking to myself, and my door was open today when I was listening to this. So, a lot of people heard a lot of amens who were out there. But there was a lot of amening happening when she talked about inner government and integrity. As leaders, true, genuine leaders, go back and watch Born, Trained, Led, Guided. True leaders have that inner government that if no one else is around, they're still going to do it. She gave the example. That internal government, that internal integrity, your car is clean all the time because you believe in clean. Not, oh, somebody's about to, hey, we need you to give so a ride. Okay, I just need to go downstairs real quick. Just give me 10 minutes. We need to come to your house and have a whatever meeting, lunch. Oh, okay, well, I need to go right now. So-and-so needs to have a meeting in your office right now. See, all those panic because you don't believe in the standard because you believe in the standard. You obey the standard when you have no other option as a mainstay, okay? And so she said that obedience is based on inner government. Woo! Ooh, ooh, ooh. You will know if you are lawless in your soul when you only obey the rules because you have no choice. Not because you believe in them, because you can't get out of it. She ran that down. Excellence cannot come without inner government. Excellence is a place first, then it's a performance. It's a place in you. And we think that excellence is just, ta-da, the finished result. See, I am excellent. No. It's that internal part. Excellence is a spirit. And she talked about David, or not David, that was earlier, Daniel. And how in the book of Daniel, it was noted that he was of an excellent spirit. Okay, she said you write things down when you intend to remember. She made it real personal there. I was flashing back to my early days of being trained. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that lesson. Yeah, I remember that moment. I remember that office training by Dr. Price. Where's your paper? Where's your notepad? And people think to this day, you're just so diligent with it. I'm so trained. Okay, I'm so trained. I believe in the training, but trust me, I'm so trained to be this person. Nobody is magic. Nobody just pops out of the womb ready. That's a fantasy. It takes work. It takes a lot of work, constant, ongoing work. She said you have got to allow your ministerial identification or identity to be absorbed by the mantle on your leader's life. Now, she was talking about her because she was training her leadership class. So if you're not on Dr. Price's leadership team and you're on somebody else's leadership team, you have to, again, allow your ministerial identity to be absorbed into that of your leader. How do you know? Where is that? What? Professionally, any job. If you've ever sold insurance, been an insurance broker for whoever, you know, we have a lot of State Farm things and whatever around town, independent buildings. That person's name is on the building as the insurance agent, but they are an agent for that company. So the way they want to do insurance doesn't matter. The most independent thing they can do is have their name on the building and the door and their name on the business cards. Everything else is the way the company does it. And then if you move to another insurance company to be an insurance agent, guess what? Then you roll over and do the things they do. You don't come and say, well, I was over here with so-and-so, and that's not how they do it. That's not how they do it there. Right, this is how we do it here. And you only have a certain amount of time of telling them how somebody else does something or how you did it with somebody else before you start getting memos, notices, hours cut short, people being redirected. We just don't think we're a fit for you because you won't fit in here. You refuse to fit in here. So she talks about this. She talks about how rebellious leaders are like spasms in the body. And so, of course, you know, Dr. Price has done research, and she researched that diseases and all those other disorders are likened to spasms. And so when you have leaders who don't conform, it's like leadership spasm. They're just always causing the whole thing to just jerk around and spasm and get all tight. Spasms are painful. You're standing there smiling, and then you're on the floor crying. Just that fast. Hollering all over the place. You're in a good sleep. Charlie horse, yeah, jolts you out of your sleep. You're on the floor. You're hollering. You're trying to find something to get it out. Just relief. When your body starts spazzing, all you want is relief. And when you have somebody in your leadership who is spasming all over the place, you start seeking relief options. Like anything else. In your body, what pill do I need to take? What routine? How do I need to change my diet? Do I need to eat? What is it? Potassium? What is off that I just keep seizing, having these muscular seizures? And she said your own wisdom is mutant, which is why you shouldn't rely on your own wisdom. I said, okay. She said, instead of manifesting, we are mutating. Now, this was back then. And look at us now. We are a mutated mess as the body of Christ. Mutant leaders, mutant leadership. We're seeing congregations, like she said, looking like third world nations. Jesus Christ came to bring people out of that bondage, not to allow them to be free in that bondage, just using his name. And this is the one that nearly took me out. I'm sure this took me out then, and it nearly took me out today. Procrastination and laziness are spiritual warfare. We're always looking for the big devil in the room. And see, it's that kind of stuff. She said the hindering spirit is to launch an attack against excellence. Things that hinder. In that particular example she gave, service started 15 minutes late. The chairs were not set up. Some wasn't right. The deacons, ushers were not on duty on time. And the night was started late. And she said that is a warfare. And when you have people in positions who are supposed to prevent warfare, that don't recognizing they are facilitating warfare, or don't even recognize this is warfare to somebody else. I mean, it's just 15 minutes late. What's the big deal, right? It's just 15 minutes. No. When anything that comes against the standard is a warfare. So if the standard is we start at 9, and we're starting at 9:05, that is opposition to the goal. That is a hindering spirit. You are hindering the execution of why we're here. It doesn't matter what we say. There was a lot of traffic. I got stuck in traffic. There's always traffic at this time of day. Why didn't you leave earlier? Could you not leave earlier? Then why didn't you call somebody to get them started? Sometimes you can't leave earlier, and there is traffic, and you can't get around it, but you can have a preventative measure in place. What are we doing to get around that? So she said a warrior prepares for an anticipated attack.
Very good.
And again, we think attacks are the big atomic bomb dropping, not somebody tripping over a pair of shoes that were left out in the middle of the floor. Because trust me, if you fall, you have felt attacked. You're like, see, I don't need this attack in my life right now. Waiting until the last minute to put gas in your car. And so you are in a hurry, you are already late to get somewhere, and instead of getting gas in your car 2 days ago when you should have, you were waiting until the last minute when you should have still been able to do it. You're running late, somebody's waiting on you. You now have to stop and get gas, and guess what? There is a line wrapped around the building because the gas station on the street is closed. You know, that's how it plays out. When you open the door to warfare, it just keeps piling up like a traffic jam all over the place. So I want you to go. It is available on our e-store right now. You can go now or after the broadcast and put in, or she has an audio archive section, I believe, up there. Speaking of website, when you go to www.drpaulaaprice.com, you will see a brand new website. So I challenge you, I encourage you, I tell you, check it out today. When you go there, I was like, hey, yes. And we had to get our schedule lined up accurately. 1 a.m., Dr. Price will be on the Word Network. Midnight Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Pacific West Coast. Tonight, you can watch Taking It On with Paula Price debuting. There was a slight confusion with that timing. It is tonight. So once the sun goes down in between tonight and tomorrow, you can watch Taking It On with Paula Price. And speaking of Taking It On with Paula Price, next Thursday is Taking It On Thursday, where we said when we were doing our webathon, you would hear from us every month. So a couple days, at least 2 days in the month, we're going to have Taking It On Thursdays. And we will have our webathon that will continue, special guests addressing different issues that are happening in the kingdom. But the point is to continue fundraising. As you can see, we are pushing out into bigger platforms with Taking It On with Paula Price. That's not free and it's not cheap, but it is certainly worth it. And we can't do it without you. So I want to say, as a producer of the show, thank you to everybody who signed up already and partnered with us in our first round webathon of Taking It On with Paula Price, taking it to the world on some of the, all of the top networks that we can get on. No matter what, that's the goal. Shooting season 2, 3, 4, infinity and beyond is where we want to go with this. And so I want to challenge you in that. I want to encourage you. So next Thursday will be Taking It On Thursday, and we'll be going during the day until about 6 o'clock in the evening. Various broadcasts, pop-ups, updates. I'm going to see if we can get back in that kitchen with Angela and still have a lot of fun and excitement with our fundraising. But raising funds, we are doing. I think Dr. Price is going to talk about the Apostolic Summit whenever she takes us, oh look, she's looking at our website. Whenever she takes us to wherever we are going. But takingiton.com, www.takingiton.com. What is Dr. Price's television show? Is it a preaching show? Is it a talking show? Is it, like all the other things? Well, if you know Dr. Price, you know nothing. It's like all the other things. Anywhere, ever, not one day of her life has she been like everyone else. And she had been told that, she said, from the time she was a little girl. Her mom was like, where did you come from? I think all the families have that one child. You're like, where did you? You're a strange little girl. You were strange. Okay. But I'm out of here. That's all I know. I'm out. And the kids who leave and never come back when they grow up, they were the kids when they were plotting, when they were young. I am out of here. Because I tell you what, kids don't have the articulation of their destiny. All they can say is just what is in them. What is in them. And it can sometimes be a little messy and they can look like they are out of order. But that is what happens with them. So again, go to www.drpaulaaprice.com for the new website. New website. You want to check that out. www.drpaulaaprice.com. New site, not just a new layout, the new everything is beautiful. It's wonderful. We love it. And Taking It On Thursday next week, you can go to www.takingiton.com. You can actually go from her new website as well. Take your time, look around, read around, and see what's happening and see what's going on. Again, you want to get the audio archive of the week. And look, you need to come and visit us at the Congregation of the Mighty in Bixby, Oklahoma, which is the neighbor to Tulsa. It's every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. We have Sunday school, Central Standard Time. We are in Central Time. And then 10 a.m. we kick off our Sunday service with praise and worship. Dr. Price will preach us into the third heaven and back. Every Sunday, I am so honored to be chosen by God and just excited to be in a ministry where it's never boring. It's never dull. You never wonder why you're here. None of those things ever happen. You're not walking around saying, didn't we just hear this message this time? Oh, so this is the annual whatever message, and you can quote it verbatim. No, not here, not happening, not ever. You try what?
I'm trying to be traditional.
Well, we do a lot of traditional things. We have church. We have and people are surprised that we do have a traditional church service, praise and worship, announcements, special selection. We have a sermon and a word. We have a dance team. We have flags. We have communion. We have all of the elements of safety.
It's all pedigree.
Like when you walk in, you realize you're in church. Some places you go in and it's like, are we in church or is this a party?
Is this the zoo?
Is this a social club?
Is this the Zumbo?
Yeah, so this is a congregation. We do church.
Yeah,
We do church God's way.
reference the Lord.
Maybe we should say that. We do church God's way. He is revered. And we have an amazing time in service. Lively, exciting. We shout unto God. It's anything but dull. Anything but boring. I love seeing people's faces for the first time when they come in because you're like, wow, you guys have a great time.
Not only do we have a great time, because we do, because all my people are as animated as I am.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
artistic, a little bit of dramatic, but they come down the street, they come down into the row,
Yes.
and they look at the row of
Warehouses.
warehouses.
Yeah.
And they come to ours, and they wouldn't even know ours if we didn't have the big picture outside, because they all look the same.
Yes.
And they open the door, and all of them stop at the door.
They're like, oh.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah, because you turn in, we're in a warehouse, we're in a whole warehouse district area. And so your people at first, we have the sign out by the main entrance, and then you drive down and you see, and it's like, oh, and so people have to confess a lot.
Yeah, that's why we know.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, you know, when I pulled up, I was like, oh,
No,
okay.
poor thing.
Poor Dr.
Poor
Price.
Nava.
Yeah.
What you trying?
Oh, they're in a warehouse. And then they walk in the door and it's like, oh. And then they go in the sanctuary, oh. Oh, wow, this is a real church. And this is so, because on the outside, I mean, that is the thing about warehouses, you don't know.
You don't know what you're going to
You don't know. When you're driving by, come on. When we drove up to it, looking at it, we were like, really? God, I thought you were delivering us out of our past. We had to go and had to regroup in the parking lot. So we're about to revisit this whole other and go to the door. And it was empty at that point because the church, we were like, oh, this is kind of nice.
It was nice, huh?
This is really nice.
Yeah.
There's the baptism built in the stage,
We
and
baptized too.
we have the cafe that's already built into the lobby, and so,
Next we say, oh, Jesus, y'all done, you did this stuff good. Thank y'all.
yeah, and then people feel better again about making that
Yes.
choice.
Yes. But the thing that I feel that distinguishes us is that we, a lot of the issues that churches are having, I don't have them yet. I don't know what the future will be, but I preach your devils off you, and I'm going to educate your devils out of you. And I'm going to preach in a way that raises your will to be the best you that Jesus had. Yes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How are we going to be the best you that Jesus had? Because, and it starts with leadership. I spend an inordinate amount of time training leaders. As a matter of fact, we have a nice little in-house leadership thing going on tomorrow. All the leaders. Saturday. Okay, we'll make it Saturday. As you know, we missed the word day by Wednesday, so we're doing Saturday or Thursday. That always working Saturday. But Saturday. But the point that I want you to get is that you will never have an organization stronger, better, or more established than your leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Not because of rank, or not exclusively because of rank, not exclusively because of authority, but because lead means first. See, I don't have leaders that are late, because that means you're not leading, you're following. They hear this all the time. I'm like, well, where's so-and-so? They're not here. Then they're late. And the people should not wait for a leader. Because the leader should have seen that to lead means you're bringing them in, you're welcoming them in. Not, as the church likes to confuse it, you're the celebrity that walks down the aisle after they're all there to awe you, right, to worship you. That's not leading, that's celebrityism.
Indeed.
Because you got to get your accolades, you got to get your applause, and they got to know. And you're going to walk down the aisle, the aisle rather. You're going to walk down the aisle to the pulpit. Here's when you know you got a celebrity. Okay, we're dressed in our finery, whether that is clergy finery or not. We're dressed in our finery. We are walking down the aisle, head held high, can't even greet anybody. Head held high, and you're walking down. I don't have a problem with that. Got your little luggage, got your little followers, your little entourage. I do not have a problem with that. I don't. But that's for conventions, not weekly service. And then you want everybody to know how deep and spiritual you are. And they used to tell me that because I've always been a rebel. When I first got in ministry, you want everyone to know how deep and spiritual you are. So you get to the pulpit and you drop to your knees all dramatically. And you do your Catholic sign of the cross. And then you clasp your hands and you bow your head so everybody knows you pray. All right? When they said that to me, I said, well, if I didn't pray before I got here,
My God.
that's a wasted effort.
It's a little late.
Because that's a little late. That's like saying I'm going to take my seizure medicine while I'm seizing. No, I'm going to do the preventative. So I'm never impressed when they do that because it's all for show. And that's what Jesus talks about. all for show. So I never did. I said, now, first of all, I'm gonna be here or I'm not. Whoever's running is gonna be in my place. You're not gonna sit there and around here running. I don't know where anything is. I don't know who's running anything. We're not doing that. I don't put people up there who need ego fixes. See, because my pulpit is not gonna be your ego fix. You're not gonna get that ego shot. Because leadership is first. First. That's what everything, first. And we don't deal with it like that. We think leadership is stature. We think leadership is rank and leadership is accolades and presentment. But no, leadership means that everything to make it work well, run, is done. That's what leadership means. So we have this thing. You're not going to come in here and tell us that the reason I'm late is because I didn't put gas in my car, because you're late because you didn't want to be out front. You want to be out front, but you don't want to leave. Because you are late because you plan to inconvenience the people and hinder the service. That's why you're late. You plan that. You plan for people to adjust. You plan to bring my organization down to your convenience. So I don't care about that. And I have a rule. As a matter of fact, I was just talking with Chief, my daughter's just amazing. And so I was just talking with her this morning, and I just said, here's my rule. Any leader that's not on mark at the strike of, the understudy goes in.
Oh, yeah.
And the understudy goes in, and when the leader comes and wants to say, thank you for filling in for me, that is not what we do. We don't fill in, we take over. Go have your seat.
Oh.
Because if you wanted to be on the spot, you would have been there early enough to be on the spot. And I tell him, so I will say to her, okay, so Apostle Ashley, because TikTok, hold up your hand, TikTok, that hand is a pendulum. I'm telling you. And so, I can give God praise for the fact that a lot of our standards and regulations and whatnot, because you're always going to have that one, is due to her. They're due to her. So, and I said to her, we start on time. And the reason we start on time is because the Holy Ghost is waiting for us. So I said to her, so when they're late and you have to fill in, don't sit down. Make them sit down. Yeah. And so she just keeps on going. Because see, I don't want you to think that we're going to give you a habitual stand-in and you the star that interrupts the flow when you arrive.
Wow.
So I said, no, don't sit down. No. When I started my church, and they came, you remember, and they would come late for rehearsal. Sit down. You are no longer a participant. You are right now a viewer. View this. Did I not? Sit down. If they came not dressed to sing, sit down, because you didn't come to serve. You came to perform. And I'm a service organization. I'm about the service of the Almighty. And so we would do that. When they would come late, even now, I said, they come late, they're not on that stage, then don't sing. If all I got is one singer and an innumerable company of angels that y'all can't hear, that's what we're going to have.
You got split tracks.
We got split tracks. We had the band issue, the little nasty band issue, you going to pay me or not. If I don't pay the singers, I'm not going to pay the players. So don't worry about that. If you're going to come as a guest, then we will save you for a convention.
Absolutely.
I don't have that. You're a son and daughter of the house or you're not. So we had that band issue because people, they're still stunned about it. I know you all think that they were trained. No, my singers sing well because they were forced to be trained by tracks. Because see, the track gonna go on even when you're wrong.
Yeah.
The band gonna stop and accommodate you. Not the track. The track, no. And they adapted their voices, their timing, all of that to the tracks. And you know what? When I finally got rid of the band that you ain't gonna tell me what to do and you're not gonna tell me how to dress and I'm gonna wear my tattoos and when I got rid of that, the church cleaned up. The atmosphere was so, God said, oh, but then I can sit here now.
Yeah.
Because God be out in the car.
Yeah.
Out in the cherubim. He out there with the living creatures. Trying to feel like where they gonna go next.
Our first Sunday without a band or tracks, just vocals. And
Yeah, because I made y'all sing I fell for how long?
No, we were disobedient.
Yeah.
We were,
All right.
yeah, I'll tell. It was true, because she had told us, to sing with tracks for a long time. And, I wasn't the leader I am now.
No, you were new.
Yeah. And so, myriad of reasons didn't do it. None of which are any excuse to disobey. And so, when we had the blowout with the band, we had no backup plan.
I prayed for the band to get mad and go.
Yeah, and it didn't take much, because it was, you want to play in the club on Saturday night, you want to do this, you want to be swing dancing, you want to do everything. No. So our first Sunday without a band was one of the most amazing worship services we ever had.
God was happy.
Really?
See, y'all wonder why y'all can't get a move of God in your church. It could just be your musicians.
My God.
You know, your temping musicians, your fill-in, stand-in musicians. See, and I'm not, one of the things an apostle, a true apostle will not tolerate is unholy worship, because they know that problem began in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So a true apostle, a true pastor, a true prophet, they will not have, you will not see their people in the club. And if they get wind of it, that person does not, you don't work for them. Because you already say you work for somebody else. Because let me tell you something, there are professional positions that we can all say. There are professional positions that require you to maintain a standard and require you to have a life becoming or a life befitting. So conduct becoming, attire becoming, befitting. I'm like, you don't want to fit, then you won't be in my mercy. I don't care. You understand? I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things I grew up with was an a cappella group. So they mastered. Y'all haven't heard them. That's why it's so amazing, and I'm sure you've seen it. The track goes off and they keep singing like it's playing, and they don't miss a beat. Because I told them, you can't be bad singing in no apostolic prophetic church. Because, honey, that means that the celestials are not backing you. So I said, y'all gonna sing a cappella. And I'm telling you, they worked out pitches.
Yeah.
They worked out voices. They worked out this. They worked out that. And that prophet Adia can work an apostolic and prophetic group.
Yeah.
That girl can do that thing. So between the two of them, because she carried it on. Now here's what she brought. That's when we knew she was an apostle. Because see, they wanted to bring all that trendy stuff. She said no. Now she would go home and say, I don't know why I said no. But it's no. And so, or she would drop it, give it to me. Or they wanted to come, you know how we want to do, you ought to be glad we sing. And no, baby, be silent, because that's golden too.
My God. Oh yeah, we had a lot of singers roll through.
I don't care. And they found out that I don't care. And it's not that I don't care about the people, it's that I care about the God they claim to be serving more.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I found out with God, you set a standard and keep it, God will monitor and regulate. Because he will make people feel uncomfortable, or he'll expose them. They in the club popping, and then one of the members who don't, still trying to find out what foot they want in what. We're going to say, but did I just not see brother so-and-so, sister something? No.
Did you now?
No. I don't have dating, because you know what that means? That means I have literally a brothel masquerading as a worship team. Who you with this week, or who you dating that week? I don't want it. And I'm going to tell you, I told them I can sing. I sang all my life. And if all I can do is play some music and sing, I'm going to do it. If it's just going to be two, it's going to be two of God's best and not 1,000 of his worst. So I don't do it. I really don't. And I don't do it because I have an ego thing. My ego is real. I have an ego for Jesus Christ. Because lions are egotistical. They want it their way. They want their standards their way. They want it done on their terms. And God said to me, I put up with a lot of mess. He said, there are a lot of churches I just breeze over. They're on the books. I assign my agents to it. He said, but I want to presently and personally show up in your church. He said, I want to be there with you personally. I don't want to send the angels to send up the incense. Because you don't think that deeply. You're so busy thinking about your rights, you don't think about God's good pleasure. So God is really cool. That's why you see something, the angels. Well, and y'all all excited? I have seen angels. I've seen the angels in my church. But do you know what I see in my church more than angels? The man, Christ Jesus. And he stands there in that pretty white robe. And he receives his glory. Sometimes he's with Melchizedek. Sometimes he's with his angels. And because I tell them, if you're not comfortable in my church, then my church will change.
Oh yeah.
And they tell you, I maintain what he likes. And if he said, I don't like that, he means it. What I like about the leaders we have, particularly my praise and worship leader, because everything rises on two things in the church: intercession and praise and worship. Your intercessors need to be right, and your praise and worship leaders need to be clean. Because God can't stand profane fire. He hates profane worship. He hates Satan receiving his worship, and he hates Satan's brand of worship being forced on him. He hates it. I'm telling you, he hates it. This is Jesus involved. So I thank God that we wrote out the difficult times. And they would ask, well, why is she the leader? So I knew why she was the leader. He said, I don't care if Ashley can't hold a note. She can hold my stuff together. And that's her first duty. Now she could hold a note. But his point was, when I found an organization that I want to keep and that I want to use to benefit my sheep, I'm going to pick the straight and narrow, the stern, the diligent, etc. She'd be there in her early days waiting for them to get there until eventually we talked. And I said, well, either they going to run this or you going to run this. Who's running this? I don't know. No, she said me. I said, then you need to do your job. If you stand up there Sunday with you and one, that's all right. Because I don't think these are privileged positions. I really don't think they're privileged. And that's how we treat everything for God, that he ought to appreciate the privilege we're giving him to use his gifts, his talents, etc. I don't think it's privilege. When I tell you Jesus is, a lot of church, well, Jesus is here too, well, then show us. Your people not changing, so he can't be there. Because when Jesus shows up, devils flee. Ask the pigs.
That's right.
So if Jesus is in your house, people ought to be changing. Marriages ought to be stronger. Families ought to be tighter. Service ought to be clean. Folk ought to be holy and sanctified. Kids ought to be learning Jesus and singing Jesus song in the lobby and not their latest rap star. I've been in churches where the kids let you know where the church is.
That's
the
right.
kids are bumping and popping in the lobby, and you're saying Jesus is here? No, you got a false Jesus. I love this man. And I said, but I am not going to act like a Christian and serve Satan. Now, Satan may be okay with taking Christians into his particular faith and function and form, but Jesus is not. He said, I am holy, and by those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy. And holy does not mean holes in your clothes. Because that's what y'all call holy. Holes in your clothes.
Jesus.
Butt out, knee out, cheek out, drop down, thighs torn up. That's not that. No, that's raggedy. And you can tell you're dressed. The church dresses as raggedy and as shabbily as they treat the Almighty. That's because your outward attire literally brands and manifests your inward sentiments. But I love God not more than you love them raggedy jeans you wearing up in there, not more than that bodycon stuff you wear. No, you don't love God. You love the God that has indulged you, but you don't love the God that saved you. You dislike him. You dislike him a lot. That's why you want to embarrass him before his angels, and embarrass him before his host, and embarrass him before his what did you call it? His congregation. You live to embarrass Jesus Christ. Wow. You live it, and then you brag about it, and then you brand it, and then you model it, and then you turn surly enough to protect it. I don't care what you say. The Bible says in Proverbs 7, there is a thing called the attire of a harlot.
That's right.
They said, and they call it prostitutes' garments. And they say women who wear and subscribe to the attire of a harlot do so to authorize the spirit of death to come on those they seduce. So you got to read that thing in several contexts. And so a lot of you all, y'all like, hey, I'm free. You're not free. First of all, you're not free.
No.
There's nothing free on earth. Because if you were free, you choose your day, your death, and stop your aging and your sickness and that stuff. So you're not free. What you're operating on is God's leniency, and his leniency is you subscribe it to be, as you perceive it to be. But no, you're not free. You're never free when sexuality is your motive for what you do. Because you're bound to a sexual devil. You're bound to a fertility spirit. Male, female, goddess, whatever. So the more you make your clothes about your body, the more you show that you are enslaved by a sexual spirit. You will never be holy. You will never be able to fight your urges because you are dressing for, you're accommodating them. So we're not free. You can't get off the planet unless you want to, because a lot of people try to kill themselves, they're still here. Legs gone, arms gone, brain not working, fingers snarled, stomach, virus, whatever, but you're here. You have to recognize that. So when everything that your church approves is about the world, your church is Laodicean. It's people rule, etc. But us, those people who are taking this as a charge, as a commission, as an assignment, as a delegation, as an appointment, on and on, we realize everything we do is not about us. That's how you know where your church is. When it's all about you and your family, your little, honey pine cones, your little Christmas fire, your little red hat, your little chubby funky Santa Claus. See, when it's all about that, then it's not about the reason Jesus came to earth. It's not even about the reason you have a church.
Right.
It's pretty bad when we have to make a placard called Jesus is the reason for the season.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad. At this time, we watched the little Hallmark things, and I'm telling you, 1 out of maybe 10, mostly 20, even mention the Lord. Most of the Christmas carols took his name out. Y'all don't pay attention to that.
Oh,
yeah. Half of them don't want to say Christ our Savior is born. He is born. See, but that is not, listen to me, that is not necessarily you. That's the marketeers. See, big business has taken over everything, because Satan takes over everything through massiveness. And since he's got you to be hooked on massiveness as a measure and a criteria, you assume if it's big, it's God, because God's big.
That's it.
So, and you can't, so if they decided we're going to have Christmas in July. Now, I don't really fault them since Satan decided we're going to have Halloween in January. So this is a real covenant. And then they're going to say, okay, watch special Halloween showings. Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't I just get out of that? And pretty soon, you're going to have them all in one, because they feel like they've got you in their grips with that herd mentality, that Me Too mentality. And so I'm telling you that these are things that you're not aware of, and it's not because you want it or don't want it. You want it because it's the only option. When you realize that most of you are 4 generations from pure worship, you don't have any options, as you can see. And those people, when Satan was kicking out true worship, what did he do? He bashed hymns. He made you bash the old songs. He made you embarrassed about having melodies, and all he needed was beat and rhythm. And everybody knows beat, pulse, and rhythms go with fertility worship. And that's not exclusive, that's our origin. Because I'm going to tell you something, I like where we are. I like the music we have. Some of that music, these people did a great job when they did it. And then they got to the top, and I always talk about the meeting. One day I'm going to show up in that meeting. Yes, I am. And I will not be converted. But they end up in a little conversion meeting because they have no root, no Christ, can't tell people why Jesus is Lord, can't tell people how Jesus is Lord, all of that. So you end up being converted, and you did not know that it was happening. All you know is you agreed with the criticism, you agreed with the bashings, you agreed with the vilifying, you agreed with everything, the disparagement, everything that Satan did to tear down the church. He clothed it in a imposing or an artificial imposing ritual. And you agree. Yeah, can't tell us we can't wear this We can't tell us we can't do that. You can't. Who is that? Religion is bad. They have hypnotic statements. Hypnotic statements. You know, when you all enroll yourself in my Kingdom Mastermind classes, we're going to talk about these strategies. They have hypnotic statements. The first thing they do is hit the music, because music drops your reserves. And it literally taints your judgments with your permission and yet without your awareness. You can't tell me, we are one and the same. Always, don't ever trust the music. Don't ever trust the music. Don't ever trust the rally or any of those things without first thoroughly examining them. Thoroughly. Because you realize it took the church a long time to realize that the song stopped using Jesus' name.
Right.
Because people trusted the music. That's why I'm fussing about music, because music is like the amusement park of satanic seduction. When you go to an amusement park, you see all kind of crazy. You see recklessness, you see efforts, you see some wonderful movies, some great acts, but what you really don't pay attention to is how much sleight of hand is in the amusement park and trickery. And so while we got you up and bubbling and enthusiastic about the attainment and the fun you're having, they're programming you. Movies are programming you. And I'm not against any of them. But I'm saying, don't go so indulgently that you can't be alerted and you have not prepared your psyche to flag efforts to override your will and to seduce you and enlist you in an assault against your God. Because that's what happens. You know, you go into, right now, you go into the, some of these tattoo parlors, and what do they have playing? Music. Boom, 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 boom. That's literally treating you. You know, one time, and I woke up once and I was so upset. One time I was having surgery, and I started hearing all of these old songs in my psyche. Because see, those doctors also don't know that they are seducing you. While they're entertaining and distracting themselves, they are taking advantage of your vulnerable subconscious. And I kept hearing, you think about it, when you wake up with those songs in your heart, after you had surgery, you had some procedure. I got a dentist I hate the music. Hate it. And I won't go because I hate this music. And I hate this music because it is the same music that I opt out of in everything else. And just because you're providing me a service,
Right.
you don't get a right to brainwash me when I'm vulnerable under you.
That's good.
Hate it. Hate it. You know, I'm telling you, that is why I'm difficult with my praise and worship leader. My praise and worship team, no, there's certain songs we never go, don't even bring it. Don't bring it to the kids. I love Prophet Adia. The kids now know what's wrong with the songs. Her kids will tell you what's wrong with the song, because music is how it starts. And now, where are we now? If we could find a good piece of Christian music, we'd be blessed. And if it is Christian, could we get Christ in it?
How about that?
You know, we got this fill in the blanks worship song. Plug what you want. What do you want to put in there? Fill in the blanks. Plug in what you want. Plug your God. And every God has to make a plug for the song. And they leave holes in it, like, donuts for the commercials and shows. Plug your God. Plug your favorite God in here. I'm like, no. And so I'm telling you that you have to go back. If we're going to go back, we're going to have to scrap and scrap and scrap. And then you have these these people who have literally, moved you away from Christ through lyrics, melodies. They now are the thought leaders based on their success, because you were too naive to know that they were pawns, that they were instruments and tools. So these people now get to become the pundits of our faith. They get to tell us what's right and what's wrong. They get to say what's God and what's not God. They get to castigate God, and they get to bash Christianity and bash what do you call it? Messiah's religion or Messiah's faith, his redemption, because we don't have a religion. So they get to make the judgment calls. Why? Because they already seduced you. They emptied you of Jesus Christ. That's why you can't figure out what's what. They literally emptied you of Jesus Christ. They packed him up, put him in a corner, put him on lockdown, crumbled all of your pillars, crushed and demolished your foundations. And Jesus is now just mere soul settlement instead of your soul savior. So when they start talking to me, because there are a lot of songs, I've told people way back in the 90s, fighting my church, when they want to sing in the choir, "We Are the World." What? No! We're not the world, and the world is not us. But you know, I mean, they got some nice lyrics. I don't care about your nice lyrics. Go to their banquets and enjoy their lyrics, but you're not bringing that here, because worship is literally ministry treatment put to instruments. We were talking about the word organ last night in a dream one of my prophets had. I said, but do you know that the word organ did not begin anatomical, physiological? The word organ began with music, which is why they call your music organ an instrument. The word organ really meant an instrument for music, for sound, which is why we can do so much about sound waves and MRIs, etc. So I need you to recognize that it's time for the Christian to be smart. People ask me over and over again, Dr. Price, well, what's the solution? Be smart, be informed, and stop being gullible. Don't be slothful about your Christianity. Because lethargy literally sabotages your destiny. I don't feel like praying. I don't feel like going to church. I don't feel like midweek service, etc. And I have leaders. Don't tell me you're a leader and you cannot do anything but show up on Sunday. Because see, I'm going to treat you as a cure and not a leader. Because the word leader means out front, ahead, and not behind. See, leader, ahead. A lot of you all, you listen to all your leaders' excuses, and then we're going to sit there and wonder why they don't do this or that. You allow your leaders to define your policies. If you have a job that will tell you you cannot comply with what I do, I'm not putting you in leadership, ever. Because that's when we come down to choose ye this day, and man cannot serve two masters. Now, I don't think you should quit your job. I just want you to know you must delay your leadership in the Lord. You must postpone it for a while. Because God doesn't make a good number two.
No, he doesn't.
He makes a terrible number two.
Yeah.
And what he does nothing. That's the problem. What makes it terrible? He does nothing. He doesn't comply. He won't answer this. He maintains you, and he does it. He will take care of the family, take care of the food on the table. He will be there to receive your worship because that is the exchange you agreed to. But when it comes to you wanting to rise in God's professions, you don't rise in God's profession sloppy if God's at the top. If God's first, you can't be sloppy.
Jesus.
You just can't. So I treat the man the way he deserves. So if you have a problem, I'm sorry, I won't be able to make those meetings. Or you tell me you will, because you heard the covenants, y'all sign up for me. So when you miss 2 or 3 of them, I'm going to tell you need to step down. Why? Because I don't think God should fail on your convenience. See, I don't think God should lose souls because it's inconvenient for you, because you're afraid of your boss, you're afraid of your mama, you're afraid of your daddy, you're afraid of your kids, you're afraid of what, I don't know, you're just afraid. Fearful people make poor leaders. Write that down. fearful people make poor leaders. And you know why? Because fear becomes the regulating standard. So when did you talk to your mom? You know, because they'll come and give me that excuse once or twice. Now they don't give it to me, they give it to the team I have. Well, did you talk to them about? Yeah, I'm going to. 3 months later, you still, I'm going to. When I ask you the third time, you need to understand, I'm not asking for information. I'm asking for confirmation. So you're afraid when you don't know, if you're a wife and your husband is heavy-handed on you and you haven't worked that out, you can't be a leader here. Because, see, there's always that second voice that I've got to run everything through. So if your spouse is not in agreement and you can't manage their dislike or their distaste, then you need to be the spouse. See, the reason the church is in a mess because we like mess. And we like mess because of fear. We're afraid. Well, what if they leave the church? Well, I don't care. What if God leaves them? That's also a possibility. When he said he'll never leave us nor forsake us, he may never leave you or forsake you. He did never stop Saul from being Jewish. He never stopped Saul from being a citizen of Israel. He stopped Saul from sitting on the throne. And so when Saul ticked God off 20 years before his death, God was done with him. He was done with him 20 years before God let him die. Why? Because he needed Saul to be the placeholder for the appointed one. He was David's placeholder. And sometimes God will give you a position and promote you in a position to see if you're going to serve him as a placeholder or as an occupant, a station occupant. So we think God thinks like us. I was talking today, when I train my leaders, I have an acronym that I use called ROAD, R-O-A-D, ROAD, because leadership is responsibilities, obligations, accountabilities, and duties. And none of that has to do with love. None of it has to do with like, none of it has to do with approval or disapproval. But the road of leadership is responsibilities, obligations, accountability, and duty. So if you have a problem with responsibility, you will not be a good leader, even if you end up being a front runner. You know, we love bandying the word steward about, but have you ever broken down the word steward? Etymological. Because you need to break it down. Because as far as you're concerned, steward, literally steward and service and ministry are all synonyms. They're not. Some things aren't synonyms, help me God. Some things are not synonyms, but they're elements. Some things are elements or components. And so you need to know where those synonyms fall in terms of the intent and objective of a position. We love that. I'm a steward in the church. What does that mean? Steward means household manager. It means administrative manager. It means dispenser. What are you dispensing? Sitting on the front row. Steward means more than, hey, I got promoted, I'm a big leader. Steward is a decision maker, a problem solver, a solutionist, if you will. So when you say, when God wants you to have stewardship, he does not want you to confuse stewardship with showmanship.
Amen.
Which is often the case. You wear the badge, we let you sit on the front, stand at the door. Guardianship is a major part of stewardship. Very thirsty today. Guardianship, very important. Protection, very important. Arbitrator, advocacy. See, they're all elements of stewardship. Trust, economy, They're all in that definition. So it's more, so some people, you were made stewards and you weren't stewardly. That just happens because we're learning and we'll continue to learn. But why is all of this important? Because most people are leaders for secular reasons, for human reasons, and whether it's or sacred reasons. Whichever it is, you are a leader because your institution has adversaries, has threats, has risks, and you'll never be a better leader than you are when you are aware of what those are, what they look like, how they show up. Typically, you heard her talk earlier about, yeah, because you know this kind of thing, we do this. You shouldn't just know the patterns of Christ. You need to know the patterns of his adversary as well. Because you are the solution to those threats, risks, etc. Leadership has very little to do with you just standing in, being out front, or you being the one to veto, or you being the one to have the last word, or to command people to do this or that. Those things are part of the threads in the fabric. But the garment itself, the mantle itself, is literally supposed to be a preventative, a hedge of protection against what would normally and freely invade that institution, destroy its existence, and violate its properties and its people. The church's members are violated today.
Yeah.
They're violated. And when you read about the Bible talks about violated, you see a phrase in Scripture that says, but they've done violence to your law. The church has done violence to God's righteousness. The church has done violence to his holiness. They have violated his laws, his government. And you know why? Because people were leaders just to be on a roll. Most Christian leaders today don't think it's a big deal that they're a leader for Christ. They think being a leader is a bigger deal than being a leader for Jesus Christ. Most of them can't tell you about Jesus, what he likes, doesn't like, cares for, doesn't care for, and they don't know where to get that information because they've been talked out of the Bible.
That's true.
So they don't know where to get it. So now we're living in the leadership paradigm of making it up as you go along.
That's true.
Preferential leadership selection or options. What we call doctrine has to do with someone's experience with the issue that is in question, that they must address. And so everything is operating on that experiential, historical recall, not what the Lord has in mind. So we're going to talk about that more in the future. But I want you to understand, because God is dealing with leadership a lot through me, with me. He talks about it nonstop. He said, if I don't get my leaders in order, then any type of endeavor or venture I use, or any type of rescue effort I have, is wasted. Because the leader is going to keep taking you back to their preferences, to the old, to their experiences, to their ideals and ideologies. Does that help you all? How are they doing?
Very good.
You all following? Before I forget, you see I got my thing up here. Okay. I got my thing up here. 2019 New Era Apostleship Summit. Theme, the rise of the mighty ones. Now I told you, a fearful person will sell you out and not really mean to. But their overdeveloped, heightened sense of survival and self-preservation will always put them first and put everything else at risk. I told you that. But I want to tell you, a weak person will fail you. One will betray you, the other will fail you. And they will fail you because they lack capacity, they lack comprehension, they lack awareness, but they lack the muscle. See, there is a thing called spiritual muscle and soul muscle, and God is always strengthening your spiritual muscle, your soul muscles, always. He's always doing it. And so when you have to see it, and strength of fortitude, the mighty ones. Can your nay be nay and your no be no when it's unpopular, when the people push back and the public disapproves? Can you stand? I'm looking at our president. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody say anywhere. Donald Trump is a mighty man. Because there's not a Democrat that's dogging him today who would have put them through and sustained and survived what he's doing. Every day I say issue strength. I say God sends him strength because he is a mighty one in the earth. Mm-hmm. Because baby, it's bad enough to have your family mad at you.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's not good. It is bad to have your city, your state, your nation. But this man has several nations breathing down here. And I know all these Democrats lining up to be president, they have no idea of the fallout of what they've done. Mm-hmm. But when I think about a mighty man in the earth, I think just somebody who can withstand, and he is living to stand, having done all to stand there for it. He is living it. He's in today's world, I'm thinking this guy is amazing. And somebody needs to say it. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about a leader that can stand, a leader that can take the blows, a leader can still get up in the morning. This man is a mighty leader in the earth. Mm-hmm. And history is going to tell his story very differently than the media of today.
That's right.
Because if you take the fact that he's backing Jesus Christ off the table, he would be a classic role model for any university for leadership because he's exhibiting every one of the elements and the attributes of a formidable leader. Right. Not moved, not fazed. I think he has very difficult times privately, but don't worry about it because we keep sending him angels. That's why you all don't know why he doesn't get up, why he keeps getting up and doesn't stay down, because I keep sending him the powers from on high. Because God assigned to this man an amazing host of angels. Mm-hmm. So his edge is bigger than they think. See, his edge is more formidable than they imagine. This man has a head, and you know why? Because God said, well, as long as he keeps taking care of me, I'm going to take care of him. Amen. Well, as long as he's going to keep taking care of my people, I'm going to take care of his life. And as long as, and so, even when you look at this, like, what's going on? God wants America to see how ugly it is. That's right. How unjust it is. But most importantly, how vile it is. Yeah. Because if the head is sick, the body is literally destroyed, deteriorated. So when I think about today, mighty ones, now that's me. I've studied leaders. I've done the, War and Peace books. I read them. I did the Some Young thing. I read that too. I read all the, because I profile leaders. That's what I do. And I profile leaders not only from the resume. Most of these people are profiling this man from his resume and not from all that he's achieved.
That's it.
This man, I decree and declare, it will come out in print. He is a mighty one in the earth. And he is like that Nimrod that set up civilization and set up cities. This man is a mighty one. And I'm going to keep saying, I'll tell my people, no, y'all not coming up here talking about that because truth. I don't care about preference if it's not going to conform to truth. And the media cannot spell truth. To them, truth equals trouble. Let's keep troubling the situation. But I'm telling you, this man has stood and stood. They keep wanting to crack him, and they can't crack him because in his sleep, God anoints him. In his sleep, the God has given a man a new heart. I don't know if that makes sense. You're a Christian, read your Bible. Samuel that prophesied that Saul was made a king. He wasn't born a king. He was made a king because God gave him a new heart.
That's right.
Daniel talks about the beast that rises up from the people to rule the land. And he came into existence with a beast heart. And when it came time for him to carry out God's will, he gave him the heart of a human being. Yeah. So there's a difference between the beastly heart and the heart, and I'm talking about the soul heart. But when I thought about this thing, I said, well, God, well, because the Bible talks about God using his mighty ones in the earth to get things done. God can't work with weaklings. He just can't. He babysits them. He nurses them. He trains them. He even treats them. But until they become mighty, he can't get a thing done. Because God needs somebody that he can make mighty enough to achieve his objectives. He says to Pharaoh, for this cause I raised you up, that I may show my power. See, weaklings don't have to worry about God's power. So God made Pharaoh so powerful that he would be an equivalent or a useful instrument, tool, and dare I say, toy.
Yeah.
Because God played with him. He said, okay, I'm tired of pretending I don't have any power. I'm tired of pretending that you're all power. I'm tired of letting you carry that. I'm going to break this down. I'm taking it over. And so the 10 plagues were always on the books. But the person who would respond to God's enhancements and upgrades sufficiently enough to carry them out had to be a whole different kind of process. Because God will use you for your heart. We love the Cyrus story. Love it. Don't we love it? Donald Trump is Cyrus. Whether he is or whether he isn't, that's a whole other thing. But, because I think he's more of a Jephthah than a Cyrus, but then the man was wealthy, and whoever said that chose wealth over, brawn or something, I don't know. But, and he could be a little of both. But here's what I do know. We love the Cyrus story. Don't we love it? But God prophesied Cyrus long before Cyrus was born. Yeah. And then he gave Cyrus win after win after win after win after win, conquest after conquest, after he made him a completely formidable warrior. And he had to put the man in a seat of incontestable power to achieve what he wanted. Yeah. So we look at all of the things that you're criticizing about this man, this president, those are your issues. That is not why God put him in power. God put him in power to take down the darkness. And I promise you by the Holy Ghost, he will do that. He will do it. Just like Cyrus did it, Pharaoh did it of Egypt. God has always made people ridiculously. There is no definition, because we don't want to hear that, and I'm sure that our side is doing a good job of carrying it out, but there is no way to define the invincibility and the imperviousness of Donald Trump other than God. He is a handmade mighty one in the earth. God built this man for this day. That's right. And he not just built this man for his day. He built this man for this day in history. Because God needed somebody who could take a punch, take a push, take a whatever. I'm telling you, impeachment is not going anywhere. And I'm sitting in my seat of authority by the word of the Lord. Is not going anywhere. You can play the game, you can go ahead and say, yeah, but no. Just because you let a toy train run doesn't mean you put people on it to take them anywhere.
Oh, okay.
And this is a toy train, just riding around. And because they don't want to impeach him. What they want is for you to have a reason to not vote for him for a second term. Right. So if he's embroiled in some sort of government action, and I'm telling you, by the Spirit of the living God, it's not gonna happen. God told me that 6 times. He said it to me. There will be no impeachment. 6 times. There will be no impeachment. There will be no impeachment because see, the Democrats think Satan is in control. Mm-hmm. But creation knows Jesus is in control. Mm-hmm. And Jesus said, I called those things to be not as though they were. So I don't even read about it. I don't care about that. Because when you got heaven's news, what do you care about the media? It's not gonna, I'm telling you, the Holy Ghost, he made me say this, because when you get out like that, he's like, yeah, but we'll see. But he made me say this. It's gonna look ugly, it's gonna get crazy, it's gonna look like it's getting close, but what you need to do is go behind the set.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, we're in a theater,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking at the stage.
That's right.
Go behind the set. Because I told you before, God said he did not do all that he did for his people for a 4-year run. You understand that these people don't want him to impeach before the election. They want you to think that he is worthy of impeachment and not worthy of your vote.
Re-election.
Because they really do not want a tongue-talking, Holy Ghost walking,
Anything.
dot. So,
Right.
see, this is a game. And you need to not get sucked in by the game.
Yes.
Because this game is always about Esau and Jacob. It's always about Jesus and Satan. But more importantly, it's all about who inherits eternity in the light or the darkness, the doomed or the redeemed. And we, as Christian leaders, we need to know that. We need to be able to do that. So that is why I came up with the, I know y'all thought I was lost, but since I do have a little time, so I'll do something. Okay.
Absolutely.
The rise of the mighty ones. Because to back this plan, see, true apostles back God's plan. True bishops back Jesus' plan. If they have not taken the buyout, sellout package of darkness.
Jesus.
And so we must back the Holy Ghost. And we must prophesy on the airways. I didn't want to do this. Of course, we never want to do it because, God is putting me out there. I don't care about that right now. I'm good at this, and it's good to me. So I'm past that. I'm telling you, we must back this man's play. And we're not backing Trump. We're backing Jesus. We must back the sovereign of creation. We must back the rightful God that founded
Yes.
the United States of America.
Amen. Amen.
That redeemed the nations.
Mm-hmm.
See, because God gave me Psalm 2. He let me know I was going to get there. Why do the heathens rage and the nations plot a vain thing? And they gather together against the Lord and his Christ. So I am 100% adamant, convinced, persuaded this thing's going to die in the waters. Because there's a tragedy coming.
Jesus.
And by the time they get back to it, it'll be too late.
Mm-hmm.
Because God's a player too. And he's the player who designed the game board, created the players, the game players, played the game, defeated it all, and then decided how every game is going to turn out. See, the church has gotten so caught up in thinking that God is love, you forgot the man is a warrior. The man is not just a redeemer. Are you kidding? He's a ruler. And God's not going to lose this fight. With or without your approval. He is not losing this. The earth, Jesus said, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. All means all. And then he said, angels and principalities are subject to me. So I don't care how many witches brews they got. I don't care how many organs they eat, how many intestines and entrails they suck up. I don't care how many aborted babies they include in their rituals. The blood of a whole, 5, 6, 7 millennia of animals and humans could not accomplish what the blood of Jesus Christ did.
That's for sure. Yeah.
I don't care about that, and you shouldn't either. Because the blood that rules the world has already been shed and has already destroyed and obliterated every other blood that's been shed, even Abel's. The first blood to be shed on the planet, Jesus said, but mine is better than that. And Abel's blood didn't die. It kept talking. My brother killed me. Cain killed me. The Lord is righteous. On and on and on. Abel was born to die, which is why Jesus was related to Abel. He was born to be the first sacrifice. So as we go forward, God is looking for mighty ones, and that is what I am grooming in this summit and every other one, the mighty ones of the earth. And I'm going to give you information, instruction, criteria, and on we go. I'm going to give you all of that for you to discern where the mighty one in you is and where it's hiding out. Because see, Gideon was a mighty one hiding out. Now Jephthah was a mighty one acting out. No, we have to vote. Come on, team. But you will not, I promise you, you will not find 2020 boring. Because heaven's already playing. God is sitting there. I watch him sometimes because, you know, he's so bored with all of this. And the ball is just bouncing back and forth, waiting for everything to get ready. I said, well, God, well, when you up? And he said, when I get things in position. And he gave me the signs to know when he's ready to go. And I want to tell you right now, the Lord, Jesus, and the heavenly hosts are in go time. They're in go mode. That's why you see people dying. That's why you see people getting fired. That's why you see people leaving, abdicating him. I told you before, God's got people leaving their offices, seats, and positions of righteousness on purpose. And he's letting them, he's doing it according to their will, and they think it's their idea. You can look around at the various problems we have. This one is having that crisis, that one's having that crisis. God is like, I'm just letting the fruits of their deeds and their doings, their thoughts and their will happen to them. They conceived it. I materialized it. The season is manifesting it. So God is not, I'm telling you, he's already in play. Some of you all, you're losing your jobs. You don't know why. Bosses got to fire you. They can't even tell you why. They can't even tell you. You've had this working relationship with this landlord for a long time. All of a sudden, he is not interested because everything is ready to be evicted and evacuated for what God needs to put in its place to make life happen. Isn't that good? Huh? Is that good?
You're on the right side of it.
Look at him for this. How good is it? Come
So
on.
good.
Your turn. And we go.
Okay, so many good things. You talked about, leadership at the beginning, the difference between being out front and then leading. So I think that that's huge. You talked about the fact that there are just some that just are not called to do that particular job. I think that that's an important realization, so that you can kind of recognize where you fall in that spectrum and why you might not be meeting the requirements. You talked about thinking about God's good pleasure and not just your rights, which I think is huge in leadership.
Okay. You know, you hear I serve as the senior official's pleasure, not leisure, pleasure.
That's right. So that was really good. Do you love the God that saved you or the God that indulges you or indulged you? That was really good too, because I don't think that we think about, I know, well, you had good ones. I think we don't think about that as much, even the fact that your relationship with God changes over time, that you come into more realities about him and you have to reconcile those realities, so I think that's really good. And again, so many good things. You talked about a church that has everything that's about the world, and that particular church is a people rule church, a Laodicean church. I think brought clarity to that today, us recognizing what that looks like in action, and even what God's issues are with a lot of the contemporary churches today. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the motivational speaking versus preaching, and that now we have a lot of motivational speaking and not a lot of the preaching of the gospel, and what that difference is. So I think that's really important to just just recognize that, because a lot of churches do subscribe to that, where the weekly sermon is, it's a motivational speech about living your best life, as much as you can, and not necessarily preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, which I think also goes back to the issue that we talked about, unconverted people sitting in those seats. They're not hearing the gospel.
No.
The gospel's not really being preached to them. So, and that probably goes back to what you talked about with leadership.
But you helped me with that. That was good. Wasn't that good? Because let me tell you something. A motivational speaker is to do what it says. move you to do what they say.
Mhm.
See, so we need to, I'm gonna hatchet that thing. So a motivational speaker is to move you to do what they say. They are the guru. Guru means the servant or voice agent of a deity. So you don't, ain't that what a guru is? I remember when the gurus I became the word, because Satan interjects all of these polytheistic, pantheonic words for the deities that he wants to replace Christ. I think it's amazing that he needs 1 billion deities to replace one Jesus.
And he still keeps.
And he still, go ahead, he still can't get it. With all of the fallen angels he's brought out the sky, he still can't take over Jesus Christ. To me, I'm saying, I just keep telling you all these things that you would see this differently. So he needs to give you a bunch of gods, because he is not as good as the one God that created him and then demolished him.
That's right.
So we have motivational speakers who are all speaking out of their own hearts, prophets of their own hearts, their own vision, and so they are moving you toward their vision for your life. Where Jesus Christ preached. And the reason that preaching is important, because preaching joins prayer, prophecy. See, I like this, don't you like it? Prayer, prophecy, and principles into one thing, into one form that is meant to bring you into the object of your faith, the practices of your new realm, and the processes of sanctifying you from this world to Christ. So a lot of you all, I'm telling you, you can listen to all of that, and it's enthusiastic. We sit there and talk about how bored we are with Christianity, and these motivational speakers are all saying the same thing. They're saying it different ways.
Yes.
They're putting the front in the back in the front, cutting down the middle. They're speaking it from an emotional perspective, monetary, but they are all saying the same thing. And you know why you're not bored with them? Because you have too many options and alternatives to evaluate each one on their merits. See, there's only one Jesus. You either deal with him or you don't. But Satan is giving you, he's slinging marbles at you, he's slinging balls, snowballs. He is always barraging you. Satan uses the barrage method. And so he's barraging you so that you say, yeah, but at least I can relate to what he's saying. You can't relate to Christ if you don't belong to him, number one. You can't relate to Christ if you don't like him, number two. But you can't relate to a man who created everything there is and literally embodies everything there is, including you. God is hiding his secrets from you. That's why you can't relate to him. You are so caught up with your inability to relate to Christ, you don't realize Christ is not relating to you. That's why he's silent. That's why he's secret. That's why you can't break the seal on him. That's why he won't answer. If you are God, Jesus said, I'm God whether you lift your fist or not.
Right.
I'm God. Jesus has no identity crisis. But the motivational speaker doesn't have to take on the role of a preacher. We got to preach one God, the one God in whom all things consist. They get to cherry pick. They get to select. They get to isolate. They get to just pick. But I don't know anything. And when you ask them questions, they'll say, I can't answer all of that. Then what you going to stand up in front of me? Sit down. Get off my pulpit and sit down. Go get you a conference room where you were born. You were born in a conference room. You were born in a center. Go there. Stay out my pulpit, because you don't have to carry the weight. See, I got to beg for an offering, or I've got to hope for a tithe. You can charge God's people all this money and tell them, I can't guarantee you results. And tell them, don't hold you to your words. That's a motivational speaker. But don't hold me to it now. Don't they say it? Don't hold me to it. Well, no, I'm not speaking as an expert, then get down. Sit down. Well, I'm just telling you what worked for me. Yeah, but see, you're one you. Jesus tells you what works for him. How he became Alpha, Omega, beginning and end, first and last.
Yeah.
He tells you how he keeps his world. He told you how he produced creatures, how he keeps them going, how he decreed the end. Not a motivational speaker in the world can tell you that because it's too much information for their brain to handle. So if you're sitting in a church and your pastor has migrated from being a preacher of the gospel of your salvation to a motivation of your profession and your aspiration, you need to leave.
That's good.
You got blue.
Oh, yeah, look, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got
Come
blue.
back.
Oh, right.
And, well, I know you know it, right? Because you listen to a lot of, blogs and things like that. Because you are that prophet, that watchman on the wall. But do you understand what I'm saying? When you go and spend a whole weekend to find out how to hug your spouse, you got a problem.
And it's not a marriage seminar.
It's not a marriage, no,
regular church seminar.
just a church service. You go, these people fail God. You understand, any pastor that leaves the Lord Jesus Christ leaves because they failed, not because they found anything. See, we letting them think they're telling us, well, I found a new way. No, you didn't. You lost your way. You found a new way to name it.
That's how I like watching posts on social media from ministers to see if or when they start drifting away
Yep.
from biblical
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
revelation
you
and
can trace
truth
it.
into cultural and tell-off posts.
Oh, yeah.
The tell-offs, where you telling women to do this, you're telling men to do that, everything that becomes about relationships, and you don't have some sort of organization that's your actual purpose, or ministry, family and counseling and coaching, something like that. And you're just rolling now into husbands, you need to, and wives, and if you're a man this, and if you're a man that, and if you're kids, and posts become just about all these completely non-godly, biblical things at all from your ministerial seat. I'm not talking about not posting a picture of your spaghetti because you're so proud of the meal, like we all have that kind of fun.
Yeah,
It
I
is
eat
social.
your meatballs for you.
Yeah, it is social media, but as far as the direction that their ministry is going, says everything, and you really do have to be astute and aware and say, when was the last time I actually saw a series on something other than my personal issues?
I love that. And did you want to say something? Did you find something?
Did you find something? She said, I got nothing.
I mean, this is all good stuff.
One of the things you should know, like about a tell-off message, is that it's supported by nothing. A tell-off message is supported by nothing. That's why God calls them waterless clouds. It's a waterless cloud. Kicks up a lot of dust, kicks up a lot of things, and clouds a lot of issues because it's based on a single person who is representing themselves. A tell-off message is about the speaker representing themselves and their issues and ire with certain things. But now that's, again, theater, stage, set. Okay, so now, theater, we're all there. You go to them to learn about life. Now, they haven't lived it yet themselves. Because I'm going to need you not to be a 23-year-old tell-off.
Come on here.
Okay, I'm going to need you to be a little bit older than that. I read in, man, I wish I could find it right now. In Ecclesiastes, it says that a land is judged when God gives them children as rulers. So we've been unjust. The reason you don't know stuff is not because you're dumb, not because you don't love the Lord. You don't know stuff because you had unlearned, untrained, ignorant people shepherding you. That's why you don't know. And they are going on their present truth. And their present truth at 23 is not the same as your present needs at 50.
That's right.
Because you're going to need somebody who has lived a little life. Because they don't even have it in their memory banks. All they have is in their heart. They have nothing in their memory banks. Nothing.
That's good.
All they got, right, high school, elementary school, what my mama did, what my dog did, what I read, what my favorite preacher said. That's what you're listening. You are not lacking knowledge because you didn't care. You're not even lacking knowledge because you didn't seek it. you're lacking knowledge because there was no teacher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the teachers you had were just speakers who were spewing from their own heart. You are today stuck in dragon spew. You're stuck in seducing spirit spew. You're stuck in doctrines of men spew. You're stuck in little kids spew. And you can tell it because they say some of the most inane things and they can't back it. If you ask them, if you had an opportunity to ask them, if you finally got through to shake their hand at an event and you decided, can I just ask you one thing? They're going to say, don't ask me. And they're going to say, I don't know, go seek God. Well, if I was going to go seek God, I would have come here and spent money for you. Because God's messengers answer questions that they may answer words of truth to those who are sent to them. Proverbs. So you understand God is the answer. And if he's the answer, you should not be yoked up with a speaker, motivator, or even preacher who can't answer. That's like going to the teacher and telling and saying, teacher, I got a question. What is so-and-so and so-and-so? Go home and ask your mother? And it's in the curriculum? Huh? But are they in school? Teachers who say, oh, well, he just disrupted my classroom with too many questions. That's because you have no answers.
Yeah.
Because if you had answers, you'd want to create an environment for a very bright kid.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer to your question, how is the church where it is? You're talking about you all set up under 20 and 23-year-old, 19-year-old pastors. Now, you wouldn't sit under anything else. As a matter of fact, you go to a job and find out your supervisor is 20. You are hot. I got children over there. You ain't going to tell me nothing because I'm so-and-so years old. But yet, you grew up under a pastor and you actually grew up with the pastor.
Yeah.
Why are we in trouble? Because you are having all of these you're living through these young people's puberty and adolescence, self-discussion, trial and error. You're living through that, and you wouldn't do it with your own children, but you did it within the church, because that's how little you think of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. So you had to go through their puberty. Well, I've been pastoring since I'm 16 years old. You were in puberty. Can we call it what it was? You were not a pastor. You were a pubescent. Because you knew nothing. Everything came out of you. And yeah, but I got signs and wonders, but so does Satan.
No. Wow.
So you realize God wasn't giving you signs and wonders. When Jesus decided to step out, God said, go home and learn. I'll see you again when you're 30.
Yes.
Well, I'm telling you, I planted 4 churches when I was 25. No, you didn't. You just put 4 or 5 people, groups of people in a room, and you behaved as a kid. God makes a distinction between a child's behavior.
Yeah.
So here we are, from all of these kids, and everybody's so proud of you. My son, he's so-and-so and a pastor. I tell you what, he couldn't be a doctor, he couldn't be a lawyer, he couldn't be an accountant, he couldn't be an engineer. Unless he was a genius, he couldn't be anything worthwhile at that age. But you're proud that he stand up there mocking Jesus Christ. Y'all got mock churches. Like you got mock trials and mock surgery. They can only give you the mock version. Well, you can't say God doesn't use them. I don't say God doesn't use them. I'm saying God doesn't use them that way.
Right.
Because there's nothing they can tell you. They don't know what it is to be crushed and come back. I don't care how hard a childhood they had, it was still childhood. They didn't have the faculty to draw adult experiences and adult development from those childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. And life takes what it takes. Your wisdom is a 24/7, 365 process journey. Because many of them now are saying that because now if you get them to tell the truth, they say, I didn't even know why the people were showing up. The people were showing up because they were led by the Pied Piper for your dragon spew. Mm-hmm. Because the Bible says wolves will draw you away. So when I did that thing on Tuesday, raised by wolves, you are not stupid in God. You're not. You're just undeveloped.
Right.
You're not naive. You just are not cultivated for God. You're just not. So your life suffered because you were growing up with your baby leader. And you literally beat your children and rebuked your kids and put them on punishment for the very things you tolerated with that childish leader. And on top of that, you didn't expect the leader to be holy. You didn't expect them to be sanctified. You didn't expect them to be abstinent. You didn't expect them to be anything but your little charmer. And they all were charmers. And all you got for it is some charm trinkets to put on your little bracelet and a lifetime of stuff to clean up. You did it. The church is where it is because it was raised by wolves, and when it wasn't wolves, it was children.
Yeah.
I said, He said, but you know, it says a little child would lead you. Geographically, not messianically. The Messiah's way of doing things is not children. I don't care what anybody said, and I think 30 as a kid, when I think about what I know now, as opposed to what I had gone for me at 30.
Sure.
Most of you y'all are in this thing now, you like 10 years ago. 10 years made a difference. 10 years. The weight that you must have, the muscle, the pushback, the reason that a lot of these things made it in the church, because they were bum rushed by adults with children left alone. They pushed their way in the church through kids who couldn't say why and why not.
Yeah.
And I have a pop-up that's coming on that, so I'm going to shut up. But anyway, I'm almost done. You know, can you imagine I'm preaching on my own flyer? You know, I'm doing it. Come on, Jesus.
No surprise there.
Sit down. And so we have on the screen her debut, her big meeting debut. Yay! Apostle Ashley Clayton. We have my beloved and glad to be a part of us reconnecting Bishop Brian Keith Williams speaking, and he's got some stuff to say, guys. He really does. And then there's me. We have our dignitaries dinner. Yay! We have our dignitaries dinner, where we're going to deal, which is different from the event, but where we gather the apostles and prophets, the leaders together to hear a word from God, from one of his professionals, one of his achievers, etc. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's look at the date, because I got to get the date right.
20th through the 22nd.
See, where's the date?
On the bottom right.
Okay, we're gonna make that bigger next time for some people. So it's at the Warren Place, Doubletree Hotel, Tulsa, Oklahoma. You want to come. As you can see, it's not your everyday conference. It's not your mama, your daddy, your granddaddy conference.
No.
It's not a conference, it's a summit. A summit is defined as a meeting of high leaders, high thinkers, and high authority. Problem solvers, thought leaders. That's what a summit is. Because some of you all, they use these words, they pick it up, and everybody, we got a summit. You don't have a high leader. You don't have a thought leader.
You don't rise.
You don't have a problem solver, pilot, rule maker. You don't have no.
Right.
But an idea came from the fact that people ascended mountains to meet with the God of their land. That's how summit began. So Moses and Yahweh had a summit for 80 days, 40 days twice. The people at the bottom had a conference with Aaron.
But we see what happened there.
And so Aaron built them an idol, while God and Moses were hammering out a nation.
Yeah.
So that is why it's a summit. And we're probably just going to cut that little piece of definition and just put it on the side. So you understand why it's a summit and not a conference, not a convention, not a forum. See, I studied every one of those. It's about 12 of them. But I studied every single one of them, and I said, but this is a meeting of high earthly powers ascending the mountain and closing in to meet with their God. That is what this is about. This is not your apostolic thing where we're going to all sit there and they just going everybody preach. No, we have a theme, and if you don't keep my theme, you never come back. Ever. You cannot come to me and say, God told you something different, because I'm going to say God either lied to me or you. Because God gave me a theme, huh?
So who's gonna have that conversation?
They won't. No, most people know. We send out packages. Everybody knows where we're going. So that the reason we sponsored the event and the reason we set the theme happens in the flesh. Because in my world, I'll say this, and my beloved, in my world, from my summits with God, and I have endless summits with God, in my world, patterns are to produce a product. And between the pattern and the product, there's something called process. And the process is what happens when you come down from the summit. So Moses went, and God said to Moses, see that you do everything according to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain. When we were together, when Moses and God were in closed chambers, closed session, that's what Moses got. He said, so when you get down, I want you to come up with the processes that will produce my product.
That's right. That's good.
So everything, when you enroll in my university, you are not here just to matriculate, and if you are, we don't bother you much, we let you do class. You like it. But in my university, education is to produce a product that will perform a particular set of functions that alter the status quo. That's how we do, alter everything. Apostles are number one in the New Testament for altering the status quo. In the Old Testament, prophets altered the status quo. So, because we stopped altering, darkness started reconstructing. I really hope you catch this. So, go to my website, bring your leaders, bring your church, bring your schools, your students, bring yourself and your family, because it's a great event. And it's like nothing you ever heard. So Dr. Price, why did you just go through all of that so that you would resolve that it is like nothing you ever heard or experienced before? Because it's about the mountaintop meeting with God that separates you from the valley conferences with people who have issues with God. Aaron had issues with Moses and his God.
Yeah.
And that showed up. There you go. You ready?
All right, so we need to give on that right now. Rachel's going to put it on the screen for you guys how you can give. You can do text to give, and the number is there on the screen for you. And then you can also do Cash App. The Cash App, the tag is Dr. Paul Price, no spaces with the $sign. And then you can also give via PayPal today, paypal.me/Dr. Paul Price. You want to give into this. And as we're talking about giving, we don't want you to forget while you're taking a moment to kind of gather your seed and pull that together today, that we are having our Taking It On Thursday soon, where you can give into our Taking It On taping in the seasons. So I want to encourage you to go back and take a listen to the webathon episodes from all the webathons that we did not too long ago. We want you to stay in tune with that. All right, so you can give today, Cash App, Dr. Paula Price, or paypal.me/Dr. Paula Price, or text to give. The number is 918-203-6625. And Rachel will put it on the screen for you.
And tonight, which Rachel will also put on the screen, I'm sure, what happens?
Oh, yes, it's taking, it was like, wait, we have a meeting? No.
No, yeah, but not that.
TakingItOn.com will be on the Word Network.
Yay! Yes, come on, work it out. Do
It
your
is going to
thing.
be midnight Central Standard Time, 1 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. Pacific Time.
And do we know the channels? What is happening? Because I was looking, do I know that?
You need to go to the Word Network. They're different
On each one?
So
Oh,
you
my
can go
calendar.
to thewordnetwork.org.
Okay, so let me say it again, because she forgot she's an announcer. Wordnetwork.org, find out what your channel is, because I was running up and down, I was like, do I know? I don't know. And I think we need to put that link in there to find out where it's airing in your area. Click this link, you'll do that for me. And then tonight's the first one, right?
Yes.
Hey, guys, first one.
Yeah.
Yay! First one. And I want to take a moment to give God praise for my team. You all have been amazing. Those of you who have been backing me online, you're amazing. But I also want to thank God for the thrown in on her head producer who didn't
Nah,
suffer a concussion.
Amen.
hard hit. Mother always said that.
And she has been working on this thing day and night. The team has been working on our other support system. This has been an amazing labor of love. But I thank you because everything great starts with great people. And great people will give you their greatness when you let them know how great you see them. And I see my team as the greatest God's God. God bless you. See you at the Congregation of the Mighty. Don't forget tonight we have Taking It On with Paula Price. Tomorrow night we get the prayer part of it. You got, midnight hour prayer. Because, some of y'all, hey Jesus, At Christmas time you definitely need it so you don't let the spirit of depression and merchandising spirit of depression come on you. But see, that's why you're depressed, because you can't, the merchandisers are feeding into that depression. Because they're showing you all the things you can't afford and can't have, and who's not with you. And if you don't do that, don't get into the occult, and don't think Christmas is a sexual holiday. Because that's the way it's being portrayed today, that it is a romantic holiday. Christmas is not a romantic holiday, and I don't even know when Christmas and Valentine hooked up. So everybody's got to don't get engaged on Christmas just because it's a holiday. Can I say that again? Because some of y'all, you waiting. Some of you guys, you're so excited. You're about to go do all of this elaborate stuff, and you're going to ask somebody to marry you just because Jesus was born in a manger. See you Sunday. God bless.